You are probably living in the shadow of your father, and maybe you don't want to. But, I mean, look at him. He's got to make it all the way to 10. And 10 is a big number. Yep. But not too big for Daddy. There are a few stages to how you view your father as a child. The superhero, a lie, and a good man. We'll start with the first one. When you're just a little tyke, your father is almost a god, a Superman. You must have noticed the murals and paintings of the eternal rulemaker is also known as the Father. This is not a novel idea. I'm sure you've heard it. It's almost a cliche at this point. But from a child's point of view, your father is someone who knows so much, can do just about anything. He is 111 years old and fought dragons and trolls. His story is immense and full of wonder. And then, as you begin to separate from your parents, form your own understanding of the world, your own identity, your father starts to pale in comparison to your childish image of him. This moves us into stage 2. He doesn't know everything. He has only lived a minuscule fraction of history, seen so little of the world. Your perspective of him changes. His position shifts, and probably suffers a bit of whiplash during the adjustment. Started from the top and now he is here. Maybe his character flaws become more and more apparent. People do have skeletons in their closet. This is unfortunately where a lot of people stop, or more likely stall for longer than necessary. Your father, the grandiose image, is nothing. The person that raised you is a fiction, and by extension, his history, his society, and the system that raised you is also a fiction. This is the classic rebellion phase. What this hopefully leads into, at least before it's not too late, is the understanding that your father is or was what you could call a good man.
Happy birthday! Woo!
That's stage number 3. He has his own flaws, and maybe the stories about him are a tad embellished, but you start to understand what a burden life really is. Bilbo actually carried the ring for 50 years, and he is still a good man.
Oh!
Now there is a secret 4th option, but we'll get there. So how does this actually connect to Top Gun Maverick? In the original Top Gun, who was the protagonist? Whose story are we following? It's not a trick question. It's Maverick, Tom Cruise's character. And how old do you think Tom Cruise was? Just try to imagine how old he was, okay? He was 23 years old. He was 23. Maverick was a young man trying to find his place in the world. Tom Cruise was a stand-in for the audience at that time, someone who people could live vicariously through. He didn't play by the rules. He was naturally talented and good-looking, and beaming with that odd charisma that only Tom Cruise has. He was someone that people could imagine being. Rebelling against the father with style, forging his own way, and getting the girl in the end. He was the son, and by the end of the story, Maverick is on his way to becoming the father. The circle of life with bad 80s music. That was his journey. Enemies were defeated, some enemies were made friends, and some friends were lost along the way. That is the adventure in a nutshell. In Top Gun Maverick, do you know how old Miles Teller is? How old Rooster was? He's 35. He's 35 and he's not even the main character. Do you get it yet? You might be starting to understand what is happening here. Maverick is the father, Rooster is the son, but the father is still the main character. By the end of Top Gun Maverick, Tom Cruise is on his way to becoming the father again. He is still the father. At 60 years old, he gets the girl again, stuck in a temporal loop of personal development. Rooster starts as the rebellious son and is on his way to being a son, accepting his position as a child as dependent on his bastardized image of a father. Are there any prospects for family for the 35-year-old? Any love interests? Did you do something worthwhile? Not compared to your father.
Mav has 5. Makes him an ace.
That was completely unnecessary. The journey of Maverick in this film is going from the best in the world, having already proven himself, to proving that again to his son. Does Rooster have to learn any hard lessons? No. Apart from the wafer-thin lesson of believing in yourself and then just closing your eyes and getting lucky, this film tries so hard to be the trench run from Star Wars and fails on so many levels. Obi-Wan Kenobi was not the main character. It's fine to have a story about the struggle a father has living up to the expectations of his family. It's okay to have a character that lives in the shadow of his father. It's very difficult to live up to the image of one's own father, trying to set your world up to their standard, to do good in their eyes, even when they might not even be there. But here, Rooster is in his father's shadow. He stays there. He realizes how safe it is to be riding on Papa's back. Any trouble and Daddy will take care of it. Don't eventually convince yourself that you can do this, that you have what it takes. Convince your father that he has what it takes.
It's not the plane, it's the pilot.
Sigmund Freud was an Austrian neurologist and the founder of psychoanalysis, a clinical method. I'm not here to talk about the simplistic plot, the holes in logic, the hollow soundtrack, the paper-thin characters, the fact that most shots of Tom Cruise are fairly static or just covered up to make the digital de-aging easier, when in reality he looks like this. I'm not here to talk about that. This is a by-the-books action movie, so you know what you're gonna get. Yo, what's up, Teach? So you're saying that if we just overcome the mental barriers set within ourselves and form a grassroots organization made up of like-minded individuals, a coalition of forward-thinking millennials, those that follow the latest fashion trends and see what the other kids at school are wearing and have no understanding or awareness of the psychic torture or subliminal warfare within the loud and fast-moving images and noises on our screen, that we might actually be as cool as you, Dad? I'm not here to talk about that. What I am here to talk about, and what is personally fascinating to me, your stories are being destroyed. Your mythos is being destroyed. I am certainly not the first person to ring that alarm, but it's not exactly that simple though. Sure, the giant sift of time has not been able to work through the ever-gushing fountain of content being produced these days. It takes decades for images and novelty to be phased out of culture, tossed aside as rightfully unnecessary. Do you remember Prince of Tides? It was nominated for Best Picture in 1992.
Then why are you so upset?
Because I don't like being lied to. I don't like secrets.
No? Good. That one went in the garbage. Lost to time. It was not important enough to bring forward into the future, to be codified into our mythos and I believe this is where Top Gun Maverick is heading. I know it sounds crazy seeing how successful a film it was, but you need to just give it time. Your stories, the Western canon, is being rewritten by overconfident weirdos. The writer of Top Gun Maverick, the same guy that wrote Jack Reacher, Never Go Back. The Jack Reacher character, who canonically is 36 years old, a young man on a difficult journey who is being played by a 54-year-old guy. Obi-Wan Kenobi was 57 years old. On the surface, these stories are a flimsy excuse for Tom Cruise to still be the main character, to still be the one going on the adventure, the ultimate boomer wet dream. Or maybe it's just to earn money or provide quick entertainment through easily recognizable characters. That is the simplistic and shallow answer. The other truth that dare not speak its name is that these works are to psychologically damage the audience, both young and old, either intentionally or unintentionally. What has been the purpose of typical stories is not only to expand your understanding, to imagine new experiences and imagine new worlds, it is also to have those worlds look at you. The stories act as a judge or a high watermark for what you're currently doing. Would you have come back and shot down Darth Vader's TIE fighter at just the right time? Or would you have taken the money and run? Are you setting up the future for those that will be there, or are you just doing the most surface level pep talks about believing in yourself while still trying to make the adventure about you at 60 years old? Obi-Wan Kenobi was not the main character. Let me tell you why you probably liked this movie. Good spectacle. It's great editing, it has good sound design, the action sequences are fantastic. Top Gun Maverick is a good, well-made action movie about people in the Navy, definitely not gay, who fly planes. Easy goals. 10 is a big number. I can count to 10. I don't know anything about state-of-the-art supersonic fighter planes, but I can understand 10. What are we trying to destroy? It's a target. It's a little bullseye on the ground like a thermal exhaust port from Star Wars. And who are we fighting? Well, they're the bad guys. They're faceless, soulless, dark-colored bad guys like Star Wars. Daddy issues. If you see this movie and are middle-aged or younger, you probably have daddy issues. Everyone does. You want to go on an adventure, but it's dangerous, so maybe you go with your father. If you're getting older, you might have reverse daddy issues. You still want to be the main character. You want your children to see you as the valiant adventurer that you once were, or at least you thought you were.
Mav has 5. Makes him an ace.
That was not appropriate. What you didn't like the movie for was a reaffirmation on the necessity of death or the promise of new life into the future. The only consequences was the death of soulless automatons. They don't even have a face. What a mythos does is fill your head. The purpose of our mythos, of any mythos, is to help you think. A large portion of how you understand the world is made up of what you can remember. And if you're consuming slightly perverted, wallowing, tainted, distorted, and discolored material about how twisted someone can be, how degraded the world can be seen as, then the basis for much of your understanding will be impaired. Does this movie inspire? Does this elevate the soul? Or does it stimulate the childish yearning for daddy to give me a hug? For you to finally be seen as the true hero you are by your children? Does it point to the lifelong journey of return? Or maybe one day I'll be as good as daddy. Meanwhile, you're 35 years old. The secret fourth option that we talked about earlier is the advancement, the graduation from a child right into being a father. you find yourself suddenly in a familiar position just on the opposite side. It's the next step at the end of the journey. If you're going to remake Top Gun, you need to remake the story. The father is not on his way to being a father. Obi-Wan Kenobi was not the main character. If you're unsatisfied by the stories that are churned out all around you, if a slight boredom or disinterest has begun to set in, maybe a creeping suspicion that this art does not have much weight to it, I do have some good news. The Western canon is sitting there. It is just there. The Odyssey, Frankenstein, the Canterbury Tales, Moby Dick, Lord of the Rings, the inspiring and creativity-driven science fiction of the 60s and 70s, stories where the darker sides of humanity are there as cautionary, not wallowed around in, works that elevate. The point of these works is not only to look into the past and expand one's understanding, but to have the past become resurrected in the present. Can you create your own family? And because you're probably watching this in the Western world, you can start with the Western canon to better understand the structures around you. If books are not really your thing, they should be. Please start reading a little bit every day. But for moving images, maybe you haven't seen Citizen Kane, Tokyo Story, Gone with the Wind, Mirror, Singing in the Rain, Playtime, The Maltese Falcon, 2001, Metropolis, Dr. Strangelove, Nausicaä, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. You can start there. Those have passed the test and are still with us, and are seen as the most important works of moving images that we have. The meaning and felt presence you get out of those is immense compared to this. I think that we can do better than Top Gun Maverick. That's your homework.